Hey everyone, welcome to episode 251 of 15 with Andy, Randy, and Jeff. And what I want you to do this week, I just found out like 30 seconds ago before we pressed record that is it your birthday today?
No, it's on Sunday.
No.
It was on Sunday. We've already missed it. Well, then never mind. I was going to have everybody sing you happy birthday.
We can just move on now, yes.
And we won't divulge how old you are or anything like that. So never mind. Don't say. I thought it was his birthday today. So I was like, well, a day late. But, if it's going to be 3 or 4 days, that hardly seems worth it, does it?
There you go. Yep.
Well, happy birthday anyway. And the thing that we would only sing happy birthday because we love Jeff. Apparently, we are supposed to remember that we're supposed to love each other and everyone else. And Andy, I'm not gonna overcomplicate this at all. I'm just not, because the more I thought about it, the more I just realized that love can probably be as confusing to us as any other thing on the planet, because everyone looks at there's different types of love. There's different degrees of love. There's different, and everyone sees love differently from each of those multitude. It's a kaleidoscope. So It's almost impossible for us to define it and then to figure it out and then to apply it. But I did want to hit on a couple of points, because I think that the idea that we should love each other, and of course you include everyone else, because everyone else is those people. Well, you know who those people are. Come on. Those of you listening right now, when I just said, and everyone else, you're like, well, I love lots of, everyone else. There's immediately, like, how many people popped into your mind when I said that? And how many people, if you caught the message, how many of you thought of immediately like, oh man, yeah, that's my everyone else. That's the whole, and whether that number is big or small, it's still something that just seems like, how do I make myself do what myself doesn't want to do? And then further, like, Andy, I guess maybe let's start from this, because a lot of people will go, okay, Christians are talking about love again. And I don't know that the way they've treated me has ever felt like love. Or maybe it hasn't felt like the love I think it should have felt like. Or maybe it didn't feel like anything close to anything I've ever associated with love before. How do we as a church, and just speaking to ourselves here at Whole Life Church, how do we differentiate ourselves from one of those organizations or churches where people go, that's just another bunch of Christians that I don't relate to, and I certainly don't feel accepted or loved? How do we do that better? Or how have we done it? Where do we have room to grow? Oh, we always have room to grow, but are there
lots of room to grow.
Lots of room to grow. What are we doing well, and how can we get on board with what we're already doing well?
Well, I think one of the things that's a very concrete expression of it is our meet, worship, serve.
Ooh,
and
yeah,
when the congregation says, okay, let's don't just sit in service and talk about love. Let's go out and serve people for the morning, and then come back and worship together. I know that it's only one day we do that as a whole church, but the idea is to help people get a taste of what it means to serve and how it's so important, and then hopefully incorporate that more in their lives throughout the year. Because it was Zed Stepanovich who taught us that a definition of love is simply readiness to serve. So I think any church that is consistently serving people, any group of Christians or non-Christians who are consistently serving others, are expressing love in a very, very real way.
I saw that as one of the questions that got asked in the loop this week in the chat was about love. And, is it possible? How do we view that as Christians? Someone that you just mentioned, that someone is really loving well when they're serving, whether they're a Christian or not. And I know we've talked about this in the past. And, how does that reflect on that person? And how do we see that? Because so many Christians will say, well, yeah, but you haven't, like last week we talked John 3:16, you didn't say I believed. And that's what John 3:16 says to be saved. And so, what about this? What about this person that we don't like? Can they be saved because they love well? Because these are the greatest of these? Or how do they butt heads against?
They're saved. They're saved because God's no longer counting people's sins against them. 1 John 3, where it says, whoever loves has been born of God and knows God. It's not Andy or Jeff making that up. That's not a Randyism. That's straight
I wish
from
it was,
1
but no.
John 3. Yeah. Whoever loves has been born of God and knows God, and the person who does not love does not know God. It's really pretty.
Can we use that instead of John 3:16? How do we make those two line up? Because they seem to say different things. Well, not different things, but they come at it from a different angle.
No. Yeah.
Well, I think they're saying different things very definitely, because one is a reflection of who the author of love is, the one who gives us love, and the other one's a definition of those who follow and are willing to exemplify that love in our lives.
I like that.
They are two different verses.
Yeah, one's God.
One thing that we have to realize, I was listening to Andy talk, and I'm thinking, it's really kind of an interesting piece in that aspect that nobody in the world, we can say throughout history, nobody was born without the ability to do this.
Oh, I like that.
So it's not, and it's not like God gave us life and then said, oh, and by the way, some of you are going to get this, some of you aren't. No, this was part of our makeup. So we all have this not this option, but in a sense, it is a choice. That's the cool thing, that the cool thing that separates us as humans is that we can choose to love one another and put another person above even our own self-preservation. We can do that. Animals don't have that choice. They're constantly doing self-preservation. They can't make a choice to. I guess some dogs, you can train them, I guess, to, get in front of a bullet, but that's not how they naturally were.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying
you're sort of tricking them with that.
Yeah,
exactly. You're tricking them.
That freedom of choice thing is all gone now.
Yeah. So the point is that I was trying to make is that this is something that God says, by the way, you'll know who you are when you do this, because I created this in you. You'll finally know who you are when you finally do this.
And a willingness,
a cool option. Yeah.
Yeah. A willingness to set self aside and serve another is, you don't have to have all these warm, fuzzy, lovey feelings. You can simply choose to say, oh yeah, I know I was planning to do this today, but this agenda, now this person needs to be taken to the doctor, or I need to get them a ride somewhere, or I need to go get this, and you can simply make a choice to serve another person.
Mm-hmm.
So even if serving means that, do we have to give with a happy heart? Do we have to serve with a happy heart, or can we go into it a little begrudgingly? Because let's say this person that presents to us is not our favorite person. It's not someone that we necessarily get along with, or let's just say it's someone we don't like. But we obviously, the situation is put in place, and we realize that if we do it, if we answer the call, it's going to make their life better. We know it's going to make our life better if we love, even if we don't want to. Is that enough? That we just choose to do the right thing and give it to God, and somehow just, I don't want to say grit our teeth while we do it. I hope we can do better than that. But sometimes it's hard to do more than that. And is that enough?
Well, I don't know if I don't know the answer to your question. Let me start there.
Okay.
I don't know if it's
That's
enough,
fair.
but I do know from personal experience that there have been times when you see the person you aren't really wild about serving headed your way, and you sort of want to run,
Yep.
but you end up not running. You end up serving them, And you always, I mean, always, I think is pretty close. There might be an exception, but 99.999% of the time, you feel good afterwards. You feel good.
Absolutely.
You were able to help or serve or whatever you did.
Yeah.
I don't think we can make whether or not we feel like it or not a very good sort of judgment on whether or not, or assessment on whether or not we are actually loving. Because, I mean, the Bible points out there's lots of different, there's eros, there's, stoic, there's phileo, there's lots of different ways. And, sometimes, it's really easy to do this because we really feel like being a part of that kind of love.
Yeah, and I don't want to do it because it feels. I don't want to just do it because it feels good, though, Jeff. Right?
Well, that's not bad.
It's not always a bad thing. Yeah, I mean, there's times when we do it because, but there's times when we do it because we feel compelled. I mean, as a parent,
sure,
there's a lot of times I don't feel like doing what I need to do for my child, but I have to do it. I choose, I move into that. And of course the child would rather be, hey, Dad, let's not go down that path right now.
Sure.
But I have to do it because I love him.
Yeah.
And then there's times when I need to do it. There's times when I want to do it. And then there's times when I choose to do it. So those are all very, very
They're
much.
valid.
We can't really leave it up to our feelings all the time. Yeah.
Sure. Well, how do we know then? Because is there any way that we can be more open to the Holy Spirit leading us to these types of situations, and then counting on, or just saying, man, it goes against, like you said, Andy, you see that person and you want to run, or you see the status on Facebook, I could really use some help with this. Does anyone know of any resources? And you're thinking, I could solve that problem. It's like, name that tune. I could solve that problem in 3 sentences or less by doing X, Y, and Z. I have the resources at my fingertips. I could do it, but that means that I'm going to have to interact with this person, and it's just not going to be pleasant. So in those instances, is there a way that we can just open ourselves up better, or how do we prepare ourselves mentally for those times when, because I feel like there's been times when I've helped someone that I didn't want to help, and I got a little beat up myself in the process. Mm-hmm. Because they just didn't have the social grace or the, even for a thank you, or and again, we shouldn't, not doing it for a thank you, but there are things that help patch the a little bit of the drudgery that goes, or I know this is going to happen. I can see it played out in my mind, and doggone it, don't you know it? That's just the way it played out. Is there a way that we can just get in a good mindset somehow beforehand and just go, I can do this. I can put a smile on my face. I can love this person through Jesus, through my actions, even if I just don't really feel it. Because if we wait for ourselves to feel it, it's never going to happen.
Yeah. Well, I think we can give ourselves a pep talk. There's nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
Pep talk's not a bad thing.
I like that. I know it comes down to many times where you ask for these things and then you go, yeah, but, I didn't think you'd mean that person. And it's that immediate.
Yeah, Lord, lead me to someone to serve today. Oh, not him or her.
Oh, really? Really, yeah. God? Yeah. Well, and that's the part I think that we miss out on, though, because when we feel like, I don't know, people that we have this definition of, this is what it should feel like if I'm going to love someone, even if I'm serving them, or this is what it should feel like for this to be what we're calling love. And I think a lot of times we just don't get off the blocks and go do something because it doesn't feel like we think it should, or we're not giving ourselves permission to just be like, hey, this might not end pretty, but if this solves this person's problem, or we can help God in this way and help this person, and to realize it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be done. And afterwards, maybe if we do it more, can we get better at it? Helping people that we don't like? Is that a thing? Like maybe
I think so.
If we do it more often, we'll just feel better. We'll learn how to do it better.
Yes. And
okay. I like it.
I mean, Jesus didn't say love each other and feel good about it always.
I kind of wish he had. Sometimes.
We take the very most universal, perfect example of love, it didn't feel good. I mean, get up on a cross and dying wasn't this is. I mean, Jesus the night before is like, yeah, Father, this is a great plan. Back when we were all sitting around the throne room in heaven. But tomorrow is the day, and is there a plan B?
That's true.
Because it's not going to be necessarily an enjoyable experience. We're not locked into it having to be feel good. It's nice when we are able to love and it's all buttercups and roses, but sometimes it's just good old fashioned hard work.
Yeah, I don't think that the issue here is when it comes up whether I do it or not. I think the issue as God shows, and you mentioned John 3:16, that was just natural outgrowth of love. It just
God so loved he gave.
He gave. That's not an equation that if you take feelings and put it into it, that it's going to change it. It's just what the natural course of love does. And I think that's the piece that we have to recognize as we go, do I want to love? And if that's the case, then I will always be ready to.
Yeah. And that's seventh grade boy knows that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's actually quite natural like that. Yeah.
I like how that kind of came together, because when you think about it not being pleasant, there was never doing something for someone else out of love that was more unpleasant than the cross, particularly thinking about, he knew every, bad person, bad deed, bad everything that he was dying for. And, for us, you'd think, why in the world would I do this for these horrible, evil people? Well, why would I do this? And when you put it
in the midst of it, asking to forgive them for their own villain.
Right. And in the midst of it, forgive them. Oh my goodness. And you think about it that way, and it puts it in a little bit better perspective of, even if it's difficult, we just got to do it. And I think that over time, even though you look back on the hard things that you've had to do, whether they were for someone else or yourself, but the things when you've done those hard things, you've always learned something. And I would hope that if we were more open to just always being at the ready, like you mentioned, Jeff, and just doing it, then eventually we'd go, you know what, this is tough, but it's not that bad. And you know what, I might even find out every so often that maybe one of these that come at me that aren't maybe my favorite person, I might actually find that maybe I have something in common with them, or I might get a blessing some other way other than just doing something good and feeling good about it, that there might be some other upsides that come as the more repetition that we put in. Or even if it's just, what story do you want to leave? And the story is, you know what, that Randy, I didn't care much for him, but he was a helpful person no matter what. You call Randy, he'd answer the bell every single time. And when you think about it in that way too, I think that helps. What's your legacy? What's your story?
Yeah. Well, I do think we need to realize too that so we hear there's lots of stories of people who have forgiven, those who have, committed terrible, terrible things, atrocities to not only their family, but maybe their children. And when we say serve, we always have this idea that I need to, now, be the good Samaritan, take this person who doesn't deserve, whatever. That's how we think about it. But, serving another person, it is merely just saying to yourself, because literally serving is the ability to say, I'm going to put that person as an honor, as a person of honor. I'm going to honor that person and say that just because of their personhood, just because they are a child of God, they deserve my honor, or they deserve something that I can do for them. And maybe it's forgiveness. Maybe that's all it is to serve someone.
Sure. Yeah.
But the part that we keep thinking that our lack of wanting to do that, or our disinterest in doing that, is actually hurting them, and it's actually hurting us. It really destroys us.
That's true. It's a good way to look at it.
This is the part that I think that we sometimes get lost in it, because we think, oh, I need to have good feelings about that person. And that's not exactly what this point of ready to serve is, I don't think.
Yeah, that's not accurate at all. Well, okay, so this is going to bring us to our whole life takeaway this week, because the one I chose, I feel like we're kind of there right now. What do you think about each of the descriptors of love from 1 Corinthians 13? And we all know that, and if you've been to a wedding, you've heard it, even if you haven't been, or even I think most Christians would have heard this definition. And it all comes down to the last little line. It says, love never fails. So my question then is, because this was kind of triggered by this takeaway, love never fails. What is it exactly that I'm doing that I think is love, but clearly cannot be, because by this definition, my love fails more often than I would care to admit. So when people look at it, because I've heard many times 1 Corinthians 13 used against Christians, saying, I don't feel this from anybody, let alone Christians. So if this is what love truly is, then we're all doomed to really love, be loved, or it just doesn't exist. This is some kind of fallacy. But if we realize that it isn't, how do we realize that this really, if love never fails?
Yeah, I think you go back and you look at all those other descriptive words, and you're patient, you're kind, you're gracious, you don't keep records of wrongs, and you keep not doing that. I think the fails part is giving up.
Oh, okay.
And so if you think about failing as in, I'm throwing the towel, I'm not loving that person anymore. That wouldn't be love. The person who pushes your buttons and tests your patience a billion times, but you go back again and try to be patient with them, you're still expressing love.
I like it.
You haven't given up.
I was out of town this week, so I only caught part of the loop. I was late getting to it, and so I actually didn't see the message. So I didn't know if we'd answered that in the message, but I like that definition, just not giving up. As long as we keep trying. I like that. Okay. Well, what about you? What do you think about 1 Corinthians 13? How have you thought about it in the past, or what do you think about these descriptors, and how have you applied those to your life? You can always reach out 407-965-1607, podcast at wholelife.church, and we would love to share and talk more about those next week. Now, the loop is something I just mentioned, and that is something that's not going to be happening for 2 straight weeks. So this week upcoming, and then the following week will be our Easter service, and then we will resume the loop after that. So just wanted to let you know that in case you tune in next week at 9:30 and go, hey, what happened to the loop? It will be back, because there's something happening this week, and I thought I put it in my notes. Where did that go? What's happening this week, Andy?
I don't know, but I'm thinking about being ill.
Oh, this is Andy's upcoming this week. Andy's going to be preaching the 4th and final installment of this message series, Things to Remember. And the sermon title, There's a Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow. That's going to be the 4th and final installment in this series. And then that's it. Andy McDonald, is there a horse going to be there, like a cowboy hat? Because I can see you like on the stage, dressed like it's barn party, and just riding off into the sunset. Is that how this goes, Andy?
Yeah, no. I'm looking forward to coming back eventually as just a complaining member.
Oh man, that'll be a good day. That'll be a good day. So you are retiring, but you're not like moving or leaving or going somewhere else. You're just retiring.
No, just not going to be. I'm not going to be working at the church for a while.
Okay.
I'll be back as a good faithful lay worker at some point. Yeah.
Excellent.
That's what we're counting on.
That's it. We got more work for you to do, Andy, so don't go too far. I think that's it. So
I got to go learn how to be one of those people so I can come back and do one.
All right. In today's show notes, you're going to find a couple of different things, and we're going to wrap it up here quick. But Andy had a takeaway this week that's in today's show notes, just like last week. So swipe up, and you will find the 13 principles for how we treat each other. You add this along with your 1 Corinthians 13, and there's some really good practical hands-on things we can take away from the message and apply to our lives to be a better community, to be a better part of the body of Christ, to be a part that's engaging and loving people into lifelong friendships with God. So definitely swipe up and check those out. You don't want to miss them. Don't miss this coming week. There's a whole weekend of programming happening. There is a link. It's wholelife.church/Andy. If there are some events you need tickets for, there are other events that you do not. So please go and check that out ASAP so that if you want to attend and it's a ticket required event, you will be able to get there. And all of that is on the website. It will also be a link in today's show notes. So our final thoughts this week was from a quote in Andy's message that really struck me. It said, "We are not to love because people are lovable, but because each is another. Everyone is a person capable of a unique relationship to God. That is why we are to love one another, without regard to what the person is like. True love is an interest in and a concern for another person, just because they are a person and for no other reason." And that quote is by Ray Stedman from Love Made Visible, June 11, 1967. That has aged very, very well, don't you think? Man, if that's something that we can take away and remember, add that to these 13 principles, add that to what we already know in 1 Corinthians 13, and we've got some stuff to think about and to work on and to apply and to use in our everyday life to make sure that we love each other and everybody else, because the love each other part's easy. I already love those people. It's the everyone else that really makes it more difficult. So, all right, that's going to do it for this week. Thank you guys for listening as always. And don't forget, it's Andy's big weekend. So come out and embarrass him and love on him and give him a hug. And because he might be out of sight for a while, just laying low. So if you want to do that, check it out. wholelife.church/Andy. Thanks for listening, everyone. Have a great week.